Welcome back to Simlish Stories. Today I'm excited to show you me building Thornfield Hall. If you don't recognize that name already, that's from the novel Jane Eyre, which is my favorite novel of all time. And I had so much fun building this. So it's Jane Eyre is set back before electricity, back in to me what is a very romantic time, and it's a romance novel, but also a bit of a mystery if you're not familiar with the story. And it was published in 1847, and so this is a time where there were horse-drawn carriages and no electricity and no running water, or I think maybe there was the possibility of running water if you were like a king or queen in but probably not. I don't think so. For the most part, they would fetch the water in buckets and bring it inside for baths and any washing and all of those purposes. So I did a bit of research to build this in the first place, but I had so much fun doing it. And I'm showing you how I do it here, and this is going to be a 3-part series because I'm not joking, it took me 18 plus hours to build Thornfield, but I enjoyed every minute of it. Although I did not enjoy that my Sims 4 game crashed one time, and so I lost 3 hours of progress and had to redo that. But that's okay because it was worth it in the end. I love the result. So yeah. The first thing I want to explain is that I was looking for the best lot to build this, obviously, because you don't want a lot of modern signs of life showing, and so I chose this lot. I forget the name of it, but I can look that up and put that in the description box, or maybe I'll mention it in the second part of the video after I go look it up in World. So this lot was good because you can't see any signs of modern life, at least from this angle, the angle I'm working at. But if I turn the camera towards the road, you can see. You might have just seen there that there's like a light or a modern road, paved road. But as long as I don't show that and don't turn the camera that way, then you can only just see trees as far as the eye can see. So that's why I chose this lot, and I think it works perfectly. So I would recommend this lot if you have the game pack in the world that unlocks it, which I will have to check, and I will note what that is in the description box. So yeah, here you can just see I am working on the layout. My inspiration for the layout of Thornfield, because we don't actually know the layout. It's theories of why Charlotte Bronte, or what the inspiration Charlotte Bronte had, the author of Jane Eyre, for Thornfield was. It's kind of a mix of two places she had visited that we know of. I forget the names of them, but neither one really matched the description that she gave in the novel. So it was not one or the other, but they thought that she had taken inspiration from those. And so I couldn't really work off an actual building in real life because it doesn't exist. It's fictional, but inspired by those buildings. So I did look them up and then get a sense of what she was inspired by. And then also just there's the description in the book to go off of, and then also there have been many renditions of the novel done in film. So my personal favorite, and I know everyone has their favorite if they love Jane Eyre. My personal favorite is the BBC miniseries, which is something like 5-6 hours long, or something like that. And I just love the detail and the faithfulness to the book. I could watch Jane Eyre all day. So 5 hours to me is not enough. But so the way that they portray Thornfield in the BBC series is very run down and actually, not very glamorous. I never realized that it looks I rewatched the BBC series as kind of research before this build, and it does not really look that appealing. The outside, the exterior walls and everything have rust on them, and they just look run down and beaten, and stones are missing. I mean, it's supposed to be that way because Rochester, although he is rich, Rochester is the love interest of the protagonist in the novel, and he's the owner of Thornfield. He's this rich, brooding man who's kind of troubled, and we figure out why. And I won't spoil the end for anyone who doesn't know the story, but so he neglects Thornfield because he does not stay there all the time. This is just, I guess, one of his many properties, and he travels a lot. And he, as he says in the novel and the movies, in some of them, that he shuns the place like a plague house. So he does not like the thought of it. He doesn't really like taking care of it. So he leaves Thornfield in the care of Mrs. Fairfax, the manager and kind of the housekeeper of sorts. So I'm really kind of making up my own version of Thornfield. I wanted it to be not hideous, first of all, so I did have to take a little bit of liberty. But the floor plan, I did take a lot of inspiration from the BBC series because I'm planning to film a Sims 4 version of Jane Eyre, my own version. And so we'll see how that goes. I'm planning on doing my own take on it. So I created a Sims 4 family that has all the characters that you would expect, and hopefully I get around to that soon, because I tried it once before back in 2015 or 16, something like that, and I didn't get to finish that project before YouTube changed. I was using YouTube's feature where you could add text to a video, and then they got rid of that feature right in the middle of me working on the series. So I had Siri just responded to me. No, I'm not talking to you, Siri. I did not complete that, but I decided that the story was not going the way that I wanted to anyway, so I'm happy, and I didn't like my build of Thornfield back then as well. It was quite a few years ago, and now we have more custom content, more features. I don't remember if stairs could even bend that way back in 2015-16. They might have been able to, I don't remember. But this is definitely far superior to the build I did back then, so I'm very happy to redo the story. So I'm planning on doing kind of like a movie style YouTube series of Jane Eyre, and so hopefully that turns out. And I needed to have the set, of course, to do that, and so the BBC version series has a very cramped entranceway, and so I tried to recreate that here with the floor plan. And there are a couple scenes where you see a study, and Rochester is often sitting on a kind of a chaise, like a daybed type thing in front of his fireplace. And you see the outside at one point when the main character, Jane, is drawing Adele, the school child who she is teaching. That's why she's at Thornfield to begin with. She is the governess, as hired by Mrs. Fairfax to teach Adele, who has come to live at Thornfield. And so there needed to be a schoolroom, and I tried to do the backyard to recreate that sort of set, but make it prettier than it was, because just rewatching, I realized how not pretty it actually was. There were pipes on the exterior of the building, and I didn't like that. And so the more modern versions will show a much more elegant looking building. And so I kind of fused I guess you would say I fused the interior of the BBC version and the exterior of some of the other versions that look nicer, and then just kind of went my own way with it. Here I decided that I wanted to add kind of, I guess they call it I don't know what it's called, but a separate building away from where Thornfield would be, like a place for a servant's house. I'm not sure what that would be called, but also kind of the stable area, and stables for horses, because they would be traveling by horse exclusively back then. So I wanted to create that, even though unfortunately we do not have horses in The Sims 4 yet, but I've got my fingers crossed that one day we will, and I will be able to fill the stables with horses, because that would be awesome. So I just decided to add that, just to add to the grandness of the building. I just wanted to have that second building to add to it, to make it more interesting and seem larger, because despite how large I built it, it needed more. More was more, and I wanted more in this case. So that's what I'm doing now, is working on the stables, and I've added the giant tree to the backyard, which is featured in the novel. It's a very special tree, so we definitely needed that tree. And so I've made it 3 floors. The third floor, of course, is the attic, I guess you would say, and where you can gain access to the roof, just like how it works in the novel and the BBC version. And rewatching the BBC version, I noticed how cramped the hallways were, which the servants' hallways anyway, not the main hallways that Blanche Ingram, the rich woman, she only sees the part of the house, with the grand hallways. But there were also really cramped hallways, especially up in the attic. When Jane goes up there, because she likes going up on the roof a lot, So I definitely wanted to make that roof space so that she could go up and look out, as she often does in the novel. So I did that, and I created the cramped hallway for that as well. And I decided to be faithful to the time, and so the build is entirely going to be lit by candles only. And I made one of the lot traits I added was the off-grid trait, because I wanted it to be realistic, because I enjoy making things as realistic as possible in The Sims 4. It's just another part of the challenge then. And then also the lighting would be more realistic for any scenes that I would film, because I don't want an overhead light, like a modern overhead light shining down, when in reality the rooms would be lit only by the fireplaces and the candles. So that was a struggle, because I don't know if any of you have tried using the off-grid functionality. You will realize that this EA did not make any of the items sortable by that feature, so it's difficult to find the lights or any of the objects that will work off-grid. You have to just look for it in the description, and there are the occasional ones that will work off-grid, but it doesn't tell you. You just have to, find out for yourself and experiment. So that took some time to find out, but it was worth it, I think. And I did download a mod where it allows there are a couple of candles that are very obviously just candles. They're definitely not electric lights. You can tell, especially given the description of the light that EA provides, but for some reason they're not off-grid compatible, and that is definitely an oversight on EA's part. So there is a mod which allows you to use those off-grid and updates them, which was sorely needed for a build like this. So yeah, if you're attempting to light your build only by candles and it's off-grid, you may want to get that mod. I will leave a link in the description below in case you're interested. So here what I'm doing is just making the horse stalls and the kind of barn that would go around it, and then where I've got the part with the windows is going to be the servant's house. Or the groundskeeper's house. I'm not sure if maybe that's just a Hogwarts thing, not really, maybe that's not the proper name for that job. I haven't researched that, but I know that some of the servants would sleep in Thornfield. That would make sense, because they do mention that in the book and the movies, that the servants sleep. I think some of them sleep on the 3rd floor, or maybe even the 1st floor. It's hard to tell what floor they're on in the movies, so not quite sure. But yeah, some of the servants, like definitely Mrs. Fairfax, would sleep in Thornfield. She has a room near Jane's, and near Rochester, but then there's John and Mary, I think, who are I think I'm thinking of the other, I think I'm thinking of the servant, no, that is correct, yeah. I'll have to check that, but I think John and Mary are the names of the servants at Thornfield, the ones who kind of have their own house. I think it's called Thorndean. I don't remember, but I could check that. But I won't check it right now because I'm doing the voiceover. So yes. So I was imagining this house away from Thornfield, and I think it would be further off, but I just wanted to make it closer, and so it can add to the build itself, the build of Thornfield, and I just really like how it turned out. So there was no plumbing back then. I did some research on that as well. They did not have, they had some inventions they had things like a stove, an oven. It didn't really look like a modern one, of course. It's kind of like this cabinet / oven stove thing, but the realm of magic one is the closest one to what I could find that it looks like, and that is off-grid compatible. So I was able to add that into this build without fear that I wasn't being faithful, because it's a wood burning stove, and that is what they would do back then, and so it looked like it fit in very nicely with what a stove would actually look like back then, as far as I could tell. And but other things, like they never showed bathrooms or the kitchen in the BBC version. I don't think they showed it in any of the other movies either, because there were never any scenes in the kitchen. But so it was, but you do see that Jane has like a water, what do you call it, a washing bowl that she pours water. She has like a vase of water. That's not the right word, but that's the only word I can think of for that right now. Where a pitcher of water that she keeps in her room, and then you fill up the bowl of water, and that's how you wash your face. And I guess the servants would, I don't know if the servants would make sure that everyone has that, or if you would go fetch it yourself. I'm not quite sure how that works. I guess it would depend on who you were in the house and what your station was, because I can't see Rochester going and fetching his own water. But so I also covered the exterior walls with some ivy, and I went kind of crazy with it because I wanted to add a kind of older look to the building, the exterior, and that's also why I added the kind of crumbling stones along the top, and it does look like that in the BBC version, the rooftop. So I like that, and I also added a couple of those are actually benches, so Jane can go up there and she can sit down and gaze out from the rooftop. So that worked out very well. But yeah, back to the plumbing. So basically, you need to download some custom content if you want to be faithful to how that works, although you may not want to. which is kind of understandable because it can be a bit of a pain. So I think maybe even off camera I downloaded some alternatives that I don't show, and I ended up going with those instead. But during this build I had only found like a couple of options, and one of them was not working for me, which was unfortunate. So I downloaded a chamber pot, and so that is typically what they would use back then, and it was not working. It was not functional in game, unfortunately. So that was disappointing. And then they would take baths, obviously. So I just used one of the tubs that does not have like a faucet on it, because obviously they would not be using faucets. And I did download a washing bowl which is functional as a sink, including off-grid, I believe. And so that was perfect for this build, because that is what they would have used, and it fits right in, and you could put it in their bedroom exactly how they would use it. And then I also created a couple bathrooms, one on each floor, at least one on each floor, so that the servants could also, have access to that. And so here I'm just making the backyard a little prettier, adding some bushes and flowers and grass to make it more interesting, as it's just a vast sea of green right now, which is not nice. Oh, there you can see the family. I'm just showing you. See, there's this weird glitch happening, if you can see that, where anytime my camera is facing, is it Jane or one of the characters, their outfit is, I don't know what's happening to it, but it's having a seizure all over the screen, and I don't know what that was, but when I changed the outfit, I think it was actually Mrs. Fairfax. Once I changed her outfit, that stopped happening, so there was some glitch with the mesh on that outfit, unfortunately. That's what happens when you have custom content, I guess. So yeah, I was just showing that, but yeah, you had a sneak peek there of the cast, and which took me quite a few hours to try and get them all to look like themselves, but I had a lot of fun. And of course I added Pilot, because we may not have horses, but we do have dogs in The Sims 4. And so I was very happy to make Pilot, and I followed the BBC version. I wasn't sure what breed of dog it was, but I looked at pictures, and The Sims 4 had a breed that looked very similar, if not identical, because I'm not very good at identifying the breeds, so maybe that was actually the breed that they used. And then you can color the fur to create whatever pattern you want, which I love that feature. And so there was a very distinct pattern that they used, that the dog had in the BBC version, where it had like one eye had this like black spot around it and the other one didn't. And so I created that so the dog looks exactly like how I now imagine Pilot to look. So I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I'm just adding trees that are like the ones that you can see in the background that are off the grounds of the lot, because I want to kind of continue that same kind of grassland forest type atmosphere that was going on and bring it into the lot, the actual build, just to kind of make it more seamless. And I was trying to find those flowers that you can see back there, but even though I used the cheat show hidden objects or show live edit objects, I could not find it as a debug item, unfortunately, so I was trying to just paint the flowers or just add flowers that looked as similar as I could. So yeah, this video is going to be the first of 3 to show you the build, because cutting down the footage, I wanted it to be slow enough that you could actually see what I was doing, and if you wanted to, you could pause and be able to see what item I'm using, the name of it and so forth, or just see exactly what the techniques I'm using to place things. But I wanted it to be fast enough where it's not so agonizingly slow that you actually had to spend 18 hours with me building it in real time, because that would be, no one would want to do that. So this is the speed I settled on, and so for this video it covers basically just the exterior of the house, but also I add the floors, which I'm doing now, to the inside, and I might add some of the wallpaper on the inside. I can't remember, but yeah, basically I just finished the exterior, and then in the second video is where I start working on the basics of decorating, and to me that's like getting things in there like lighting so that you can see more what you're doing, and then just figuring out which room is which, or making the final decision on that, because as I build I like to imagine where every room should be, if it was like practically speaking how that would work, and where the hallways are, and how the hallways would lead, and how they would make sense, and which hallways would the servants use versus the regular household, and that type of thing. So I kind of had a general idea of how that was going to work, and then I solidify my ideas on that after I start trying to place the furniture and the doors, just because they have to work with the exterior windows and doors, and once you start placing furniture you might realize maybe that doesn't work so well as this type of room, so you switch it to another type. So yeah, that's the fun part of building, is that you get to solve all those puzzles. So yeah, there was a lot of dark wood inside Thornfield in the BBC version. So I went with a lot of dark wooden walls and dark wooden floors, which was definitely creates the gothic type of atmosphere that Thornfield is known for being. So I like how that that looks for a building like that. It's not what I usually use for any of my builds, but yeah, it definitely works in this case. And I had downloaded a couple custom content walls and floors. I think the one I just placed was custom content. So if anyone wants to know where I found that or what it is, I can leave a comment about that if you're interested. If it's not already viewable, if you just pause the video, I might hover over it. I'm not sure. And yeah, I know the walls I just placed there for the parlor type room was custom content that I found through a link by Harry. If you know her, she's a really great creator here on YouTube, and she had all these links. I don't know if she created those walls, I can't remember, or if it was somebody else, but yeah, I can also leave a link to those because they would be really suitable for any type of build that's similar. So that big room that I just added the walls to there, I was kind of thinking, okay, that will be the kitchen, and so it doesn't have the wood paneling that you would see in the other rooms, because the way I'm thinking about it is that this is where the servants are. They're not spending a ton of money decorating this room. It's going to be a bare bones type of room where the walls are concrete or stone, or with some wooden beams holding it up. So that's the type of look I went for. And then the floors of that room are not going to be as fancy or as nice, because obviously, yeah, they don't care what the servants think about the room. All the decorating and the splendor is going to be for the rooms that Blanche Ingram will see, for example. Yeah, so here I was just figuring out the stairway up to the attic. Or up to the third floor, I should say, although they call it an attic. So a lot of building for me is this trial and error of looking at the swatches of various options that you have, or various items, dragging them out into the real world to see what they actually look like, and then moving on to the next one and comparing, and sometimes placing them down next to each other and seeing which looks best. And it can take a lot of time, but it's worth it, because in the end, if you need to find the right look that you're going for. So you can't do that if you just place down the first item, or the first wall swatch, or the first floor that you see that's possible. You have to find the right one. So now, I'm just figuring out where all the doors should be, and I was keeping in mind the BBC version to recreate rooms exactly like how they were in that mini-series. I wanted to have the doors exactly where they were in those scenes and in those rooms, and recreate those rooms as faithfully as I could. So I had to be very, very conscious about building the rooms in the first place so that they would logically lead together and I could have those doors and it would make sense, and it wasn't just a door to nowhere or a door like an inside door to the outside. So you have to start thinking about those things early if you're gonna recreate something like that. I think I did a pretty good job of that. Maybe for the third video I can do some like comparison shots we'll see how that goes. I have to look into the legalities of that because I'm not sure, but maybe I can compare like a screenshot from the movie and compare it to how the final product turned out, but we'll see. Okay, so now that the walls, floors, and doors are done, and the stairs, we're coming down to the end now of what I would consider the bones of the house being done. So the exterior is done, and I wouldn't say completely done, but it is mostly done, and the kind of overall layout of the house is figured out to enough of an extent that I felt like I could start decorating, and I knew which rooms were going to be, what their designations were. Are they bedrooms? Is it the kitchen? Is it a hallway? So then I can start my process of placing down any item that would belong in that room, and then I don't actually place it in its final place until the end. So you'll see that that's my process in the second video. We're coming to the end of this first part here because this is where I feel like it's a good place to break. Often when I'm building is that it's good to get this is what I think of as the initial steps. Also, I felt like adding the floor and the wallpaper is important because it helps you designate those rooms. For example, right now I'm adding like a marble floor or tiled floor because I decided that this large room is going to be a ballroom, which they did not show and did not have, I don't think, in the novel or in the BBC series, but I wanted one, and I'm taking some liberties, and why couldn't it have one? Even though it didn't mention it and they didn't use it, it very well could have had one because it was large enough, and it's this great hall that was once a lot fancier when it was well kept, and I'm sure it's just unused now, but maybe I'll use it in the movie. Who knows? In my own recreation. So we'll see. So I just wanted to have the option there, and I just I really like the idea of Thornfield having that, and here I've decided that this is going to be the kitchen area, and so I wanted it to have its own separate entrance. So I added a back door, if you will, to the hall, to Thornfield Hall, so that the servants can walk from their their house over and then come in through the back door without being seen by any of the family, and they can walk into the kitchens and fetch water and bring it into the house that way. And they also have their own access to the stairs, so they would never have to walk out into the formal area of the house. And that was important for me to figure out how that would work, because that is how it would work in real life. And so now I'm just terrain painting the ground to add kind of a pathway or walkway, which I imagine the servants would be trotting from the back door to the gate, or the back door to the other building, their house all the time. And so there would be kind of mud sometimes, or just a path. And so I wanted to add that on. And terrain painting to me is definitely a part I would not skip to start getting that first initial sense of how the build is going to be used, how it's actually going to be, how it actually works in reality. And that's part of the layout. So stay tuned for the next video for the interior decorating, and thanks for watching.